There is a reason your fingers didn't scroll past this. There is a reason your eyes paused just for a second longer than usual. And there is a reason something deep inside you whispered, "Wait, read this." That was not coincidence. That was not curiosity. That was not random. That was a divine interruption. He stands watching, not as a distant observer, but as a guardian fully aware of the moment you stepped into. The voice of Archangel Michael does not rush, yet it carries urgency. And right now, he speaks over you like a thunder rap in calm. This is the moment heaven has been preparing you for. You may have been going about your day like any other. Maybe you were tired. Maybe you were distracted. Maybe your mind was heavy with bills, unanswered emails, or the quiet frustration of doors that never seemed to open for you. You've tried. You waited. You've knocked. And still something felt stuck. Something felt delayed. Something felt unfair. And then suddenly, this message. Pause for a second. Think about it. How many times have you scrolled through countless things without a second thought? How many videos, messages, and distractions passed by without leaving any imprint on your spirit? But this stopped you. This pulled you. This held your attention like it was speaking directly to something you couldn't explain. That is not normal. That is spiritual timing. Because what you're experiencing right now is not just information. It is alignment. Heaven is aligning your attention with a moment that has been marked long before you even woke up today. There is a reason the message carries urgency. There is a reason it speaks about before 12:00 a.m. There is a reason it feels like time is pressing in on you. Because something is shifting. And here's the truth you were never told clearly. Not every moment in life carries the same weight. Some moments are ordinary, but some moments are appointed. Moments where decisions, awareness, and spiritual positioning determine what comes next in your life. This is one of those moments. You watch as you begin to feel it, that subtle tension in your chest, that quiet alertness rising in your spirit. Not fear but awareness. Not panic but recognition. Like something inside you is saying, this matters. And it does. Because for a long time, you've been carrying something you were never meant to carry. Patterns that didn't start with you. Struggles that didn't originate in your choices. Delays that felt personal, but were actually inherited. You've questioned yourself. You doubted your path. You've wondered why certain things just wouldn't move, no matter how much effort you gave. And still, you kept going. But today is different. Today, heaven is not silent. Today, heaven is interrupting the pattern. This is why the message found you. Not because you were searching, but because something was searching for you. Something needed your attention at this exact second. Something needed you to be still long enough to receive what is about to unfold. Archangel Michael's presence intensifies, not to overwhelm you, but to anchor you. His voice carries a command, yet it feels like protection. Do not dismiss this moment. Do not treat this like everything else. This is not like everything else. Because it isn't. There are moments that pass, and then there are moments that change everything. And right now, you are standing in one. You don't fully understand it yet. That's okay. You don't need all the answers right now. You don't need to figure everything out in this second. But you do need to stay. You do need to listen. You do need to remain present in this moment that has been divinely placed in front of you. Because something is about to be revealed. Something about what you've been carrying and something about what is being removed. And once you see it, you will never look at your life the same way again. He speaks one more time, steady and undeniable. You were meant to hear this now. Not later. Not tomorrow. Now. So stay with this. Because this is only the beginning. Type "I am ready" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1717 is now surrounding you. Here is something you have been carrying, and if you're honest with yourself, you've felt it for a long time, even if you didn't have the language to explain it. It's that invisible weight that shows up in patterns you never chose. It's the frustration of trying harder than others, yet moving slower than you should. It's the repeated cycle of always breaking through, always succeeding, always stepping into something greater, only for something unseen to pull you back at the last moment. And deep down, you've asked the question quietly, sometimes in exhaustion, sometimes in confusion. Why does this keep happening to me? He watches as that question echoes through your spirit, and the answer is not meant to bring fear. It is meant to bring clarity. Because what you have been experiencing is not just personal struggle. It is inherited resistance. It is a pattern that did not begin with you, but hath been flowing through your bloodline, unnoticed, unchallenged, and uninterrupted, until now. You were born into more than just a family name. You were born into a spiritual history. Decisions, words, environments, and unresolved battles from generations before you have created patterns that quietly shape outcomes in ways most people never recognize. It's why certain financial doors seem harder to open. It's why opportunities come but don't stay. It's why rejection has followed you in places where you were more than qualified. It's why favors seemed delayed while others advanced with less effort, and you tried to make sense of it logically. You blamed timing. You blamed circumstances. Sometimes you even blamed yourself. You thought maybe you weren't doing enough. Maybe you weren't ready. Maybe you needed to try harder. But the truth is deeper than effort. The truth is spiritual. Archangel Michael's voice carries a steady authority as he reveals this. What hath been resting on your shoulders was never assigned to your destiny. It was attached to your lineage. And suddenly, things begin to make sense. That heaviness you feel when you're close to a breakthrough. That unexplained delay when everything seems aligned. That resistance that shows up right when something is about to shift in your favor. These are not random interruptions. They are echoes of patterns that were never confronted, cycles that were never broken, agreements that were never challenged. But here is what you must understand clearly. Recognizing it is not the same as being bound by it. You are not powerless in this. In fact, the very reason you are hearing this now is because something about you is different. You are aware. You are sensitive. You are not fully asleep to what is happening beneath the surface. And that awareness is not accidental. It is intentional. It is the beginning of separation from what hath been repeating itself for generations. He watches as the realization begins to settle into your spirit, not as fear but as awakening. Because for the first time, you are not just reacting to life, you are seeing it. And when you see it, you can no longer be controlled by it. Think about your journey. Think about the moments where things should have worked but did. Think about the times you were overlooked, dismissed, or underestimated. Think about the doors that closed without explanation. These were not just isolated events. They were part of a pattern trying to sustain itself through you. But here is where everything begins to shift. Because patterns only continue when they are unchallenged. And right now, they are being challenged. Archangel Michael does not speak with uncertainty. His voice is clear, direct, and unwavering. The weight you have carried is being exposed because it is about to be removed. This is why this moment feels different. This is why this message carries urgency. This is why you were pulled into this exact second of awareness. Because what has been hidden is now being revealed, not to overwhelm you but to prepare you. You are not here to carry what others could not break. You are here to end it. There is a reason you feel things more deeply. There is a reason you question patterns others accept. There is a reason you have not been able to settle into cycles that others seem comfortable living in. A discomfort was never weakness. It was resistance. It was your spirit refusing to normalize what was never meant to continue. And now, that resistance is turning into authority. Because once you recognize the weight, you can release it. Once you understand the pattern, you can step outside of it. Once you see what has been operating behind the scenes, you can no longer be unconsciously influenced by it. This is the moment where understanding becomes transformation. This is the moment where awareness becomes separation. And this is the moment where what hath been sitting on your shoulders begins to loosen its grip. He speaks again, not as a warning, but as a declaration. You were never meant to carry this into your future. So breathe. Because what you've been feeling, it was real. But it is also ending. Type "I release the OLD weight" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 2020 is now activated around your life. There comes a moment when heaven no longer observes in silence, when grace shifts from patience into action, when what has been delayed is no longer postponed but suddenly released. This is that moment. And as you stand here, still processing what has been revealed about the weight you've carried, something even greater is now unfolding. Because exposure is never the end of the story. Exposure is the beginning of divine correction. He stands firm, his presence unshaken, his authority undeniable. And now the voice of Archangel Michael carries a different tone, not just revelation, but announcement. Not just awareness, but verdict. And the verdict is this: what was never yours is being removed, and what always belonged to you is being restored. This is not symbolic language. This is not poetic exaggeration. This is a declaration from the spiritual realm that something has already been decided in your favor. Long before you fully understood the pattern, long before you could even name the weight, heaven had already prepared the reversal. Because while you were trying to navigate confusion, heaven was organizing a transfer. And that word, transfer, is not casual. It means something is being moved from one place to another. It means ownership is shifting. It means what was withheld is now being reassigned. And in this moment, that transfer is not just emotional or spiritual. It is connected to every area where you experienced delay, dismissal, and denial. You remember those moments. The opportunities that slip away, the conversations where you were overlooked, the decisions made against you that didn't make sense, the doors that closed without explanation. You thought those moments were endings. You thought they were losses. But heaven saw them differently. Heaven marked them, because nothing that was meant for you can disappear without being accounted for. And now, the accounting has begun. Archangel Michael's voice intensifies, not with chaos, but with certainty. Jesus has spoken, and what was intercepted is now being redirected. This is where everything begins to shift in a way you did not expect. Because you assumed that what you lost was gone. You assumed that what passed you by was no longer accessible. You assumed that missed opportunities were final. But heaven does not operate within the limitations of human timing. What looks delayed on earth can still be active in the spirit. What appears lost can still be held in reserve. What seemed denied can still be reassigned. And right now, that reassignment is happening. There is something powerful about this moment that you must understand. This is not about receiving something new. This is about receiving what was already yours, but never fully reached you. It is about restoration, but deeper than that. It is about rightful placement. It is about alignment catching up with assignment. He watches as your understanding begins to expand, as your perspective starts to shift from confusion to clarity. Because for the first time, you are not just seeing what went wrong, you are beginning to see what is being made right. And it is happening faster than you think. That urgency you feel, that sense that something is moving quickly, that subtle pressure tied to time, that is not accidental. Because when heaven initiates a transfer, it does not move slowly. It moves with precision. It moves with authority. It moves with timing that demands your awareness. This is why the message speaks about a specific window. Because there are moments where alignment must meet action. And you are standing in one of those moments now. Jesus has already declared the shift. The decision has already been made. The release has already been authorized. But your awareness, your posture, your willingness to receive, these are what position you to step fully into what has been transferred. You are not chasing this. You are aligning with it. And this changes everything. Because instead of striving, you are stepping into something already set in motion. Instead of forcing doors, you are preparing for doors that are about to open on their own. Instead of questioning your worth, you are recognizing that your worth was never the issue. The delay was. And now, the delay is over. He speaks again, his voice cutting through every doubt that may still linger. Do not hold on to what has already been removed. Do not question what has already been decided. Stand ready for what is now being released. So let this settle into you. What you thought you lost is returning. What you thought was blocked is opening. What you thought was finished is being rewritten. And what you thought was beyond reach is now being placed back into your hands. This is not wishful thinking. This is heaven's verdict. And it is already in motion. Type I receive the transfer in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 3030 is now activated around your destiny. As this transfer begins to unfold, understand that every seed released into this moment becomes part of a greater harvest far beyond what your eyes can see. When you choose to support this mission through Super Thanks with a PayPal link placed in the description and visible as a QR code on your screen, you are not giving to a message. You are fueling a movement that carries light into places still bound by darkness. The word declares, "Give, and it shall be given unto you." And this is not a distant promise. It is a living exchange happening in real time. If your spirit is stirred right now, this is your moment to act. Not later, not eventually, but now, as alignment meets obedience. Your giving becomes oil that keeps this message burning for souls who are still waiting for their awakening. As you release, heaven responds, multiplying what you have sown into something far greater than you imagine. Step into this act with faith and authority. Activate your part in this divine flow and give now. There is something you were never meant to see too early. Not because it wasn't real, but because you weren't ready to interpret it without being overwhelmed. And now, as the veil continues to lift, Archangel Michael steps forward again, not to alarm you, but to reveal what has been operating quietly behind the scenes of your life. Because what you experienced was never random. Every delay, every dismissal, every moment where your name seemed to be overlooked in rooms you should have been recognized in, there was more happening than what your eyes could perceive. There was a hidden battle, not visible, not spoken about, not easily explained, but undeniably active. He watches as the realization begins to settle deeper into you. Because you've felt it before, haven't you? A strange sense that something didn't add up. That feeling that you were qualified, prepared, even aligned, but somehow still bypassed. That moment when everything looked right on the surface, yet the outcome didn't match the effort you gave. That was not just circumstance. That was interference. Archangel Michael's voice cuts through the confusion with precision. What worked against you did not come from your lack. It came from resistance to your assignment. And suddenly, the narrative shifts. Because you thought the problem was something missing within you. You question your skills, your timing, your decisions. You replayed moments in your mind, wondering what you could have done differently. But the truth is, you were not being evaluated fairly by natural standards alone. There were unseen forces reacting to something you carry, something that does not blend easily into ordinary systems. You were not overlooked because you were insignificant. You were resisted because you are significant. There is a difference, and that difference changes how you interpret everything that has happened up until this moment. He stands firm, his presence commanding yet steady, and continues, "Your name hath been spoken in rooms where decisions were made, but not all influences in those rooms were visible." This is where the hidden battle becomes clearer. Because not every opposition comes through direct confrontation. Some of it moves subtly. Some of it works through hesitation in others. Some of it manifests as doubt planted in decision makers. Some of it shows up as opportunities suddenly shifting direction at the last moment. You've seen it happen. The conversation that seemed promising, but then turned quiet. The approval that felt certain, but then never came. The recognition that was expected, but then redirected to someone else. These were not just professional or personal outcomes. They were moments where unseen resistance influenced visible results. And this is why it felt so confusing. Because you could not trace it back to a clear cause. But now, you are beginning to understand. This was not about your ability. This was about your alignment. Archangel Michael reveals this with unwavering clarity. What stands against you is not stronger than you. It is simply reacting to what you carry. And what you carry is not ordinary. You carry something that disrupts patterns. You carry something that shifts outcomes. You carry something that does not easily fit into systems that were never designed for your level of purpose. And because of that, resistance formed, not to destroy you, but to delay you. But delay is not denial. And this is where the hidden battle begins to lose its power. Because what operates in secrecy depends on your lack of awareness. It depends on you questioning yourself instead of recognizing the resistance. It depends on you internalizing the outcome instead of observing the pattern. But now, that awareness has been activated. And now, you are no longer interpreting your past from a place of confusion. You are seeing it from a place of clarity. And clarity changes everything. He watches as your perspective shifts, as the weight of self-doubt begins to loosen. Because for the first time, you are not blaming yourself for outcomes that were influenced by forces beyond what you could see. You are not shrinking your identity to fit experiences that were never designed to define you. You are rising above them. Archangel Michael speaks again, and this time his voice carries both authority and reassurance. What was working against you is losing its position. What once delayed you can no longer hold you. This is the turning point. Because once something is exposed, it can no longer operate the same way. Once you see the pattern, you can step outside of it. Once you understand the resistance, you no longer internalize the outcome. And once you stop internalizing it, it loses its influence over you. This is why this section matters so deeply. Because before the transfer fully manifests, you must understand what was being removed. Before the doors open, you must recognize what was keeping them closed. Before the call comes, you must understand why it didn't come sooner. Not to dwell on the past, but to release it. Because you cannot carry old interpretations into a new reality. He gives one final declaration, steady and unshakable. You are no longer operating under what once opposed you. You are stepping into what now aligns with you. So let this settle into your spirit. Nothing about your journey was wasted. Nothing about your delay was meaningless. Nothing about your experience was without purpose. It was all part of a hidden battle that is now being brought into the light. And as it is revealed, it is also being removed. Type ISE clearly now in the comments if you receive this message. Lesson code 4040 is now activated around your clarity. There are moments in life that feel ordinary, and then there are moments that carry a weight you cannot explain, a pressure you cannot ignore, a quiet urgency that seems to rise from within you without warning. This is one of those moments, and if you are listening closely, you can feel it now, not as panic but as intensity, not as fear, but as awareness that something is moving, something is shifting, and something requires your attention before time crosses a certain line. He stands watchful, his presence anchored in certainty, and the voice of Archangel Michael breaks through with unmistakable clarity. This is not about fear of time. This is about alignment within time. Because the mention of 12:00 a.m. is not random. It is not symbolic for the sake of drama. It represents a threshold, a transition point where one cycle ends and another begins. And in the spiritual realm, thresholds matter. They mark the difference between what was and what will be. They separate seasons. They signal shifts. They define moments where decisions made in awareness carry greater impact than those made in distraction. You have crossed many days without noticing their significance. Hours have passed without consequence. But this moment is different. This moment hath been marked. He watches as you begin to sense it, that subtle awareness that something is being asked of you, not physically but internally. A shift in posture, a shift in mindset, a shift in how you hold what has just been revealed to you. Because when heaven initiates a transfer, it also creates a window, and that window is not open indefinitely. This is why timing matters now. Not because everything will disappear if you hesitate, but because alignment requires presence. And presence cannot happen if you treat this like every other passing moment. Think about how many times you felt something important but brushed it off. How many times you sensed a shift, an idea, an opportunity, but delayed your response. And later, you realized that moment had passed, and it didn't return in the same way again. Not because it was gone forever, but because it required a response when it was active. This is that kind of moment. Archangel Michael's voice steadies your focus. What is being released must be received in awareness. What is being aligned must be acknowledged in time. This is not about rushing. This is about recognizing. Because right now, everything that has been revealed to you, the weight, the pattern, the hidden resistance, the declared transfer, it is all converging into a single point of awareness. And that awareness is your turning point. This is where things begin to move differently. You are no longer in the phase of questioning. You are no longer in the phase of confusion. You are stepping into the phase of alignment. And alignment requires intention. It requires you to be present enough to recognize that this moment is not ordinary. You watch as your mind begins to quiet, as the distractions that once pulled you away start to lose their grip. Because something inside you knows you cannot treat this casually. You cannot scroll past this mentally and expect the same outcome as before. Something is asking you to engage with this moment in a deeper way. And that is where the shift happens. Because the difference between those who continue in cycles and those who step into new seasons is not luck. It is awareness at the right time. It is the ability to recognize when a moment carries more weight than usual and respond accordingly. You are being given that opportunity now. Archangel Michael speaks again, his voice firm and unwavering. Do not delay your alignment. Do not postpone your awareness. What is before you now is a gateway, not a suggestion. A gateway. That word carries meaning. It means you are standing at the entrance of something new. It means there is a passage available to you, but it requires you to step through it consciously. It means you cannot remain in the same mindset, the same interpretation, the same internal posture, and expect to move forward into what is being opened. You must shift with it. This is why the time matters. Not because something external will force you, but because something internal is ready for movement. And if you ignore that readiness, you remain where you are, even though the opportunity to move has already presented itself. He watches as you begin to understand, not through pressure, but through clarity. Because this is not about fear of missing out. This is about recognition of arrival. You have arrived at a moment that has been building beneath the surface of your life for longer than you realize. And now, it is here. So do not rush, but do not ignore. Do not panic, but do not dismiss. Do not overthink, but do not detach. Stay present. Because what happens next depends not on external conditions, but on your internal alignment with what has already been set in motion. And as the threshold approaches, as time continues to move, as this moment deepens, you are not being left behind. You are being invited forward. He gives one final declaration, steady and certain. The moment is not passing you. It is calling you. So answer it. Type "I step into alignment" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 5050 is now activated around your timing. There is a moment in every divine shift where removal is not the final act, replacement is. Because heaven does not simply take something away and leave you empty. It removes in order to replace. It clears in order to fill. It breaks in order to rebuild. And what you are stepping into now is not just the removal of a burden, but the arrival of something far greater than what you have ever carried before. He stands unwavering, his presence filled with authority, and the voice of Archangel Michael now carries a tone that is both powerful and deeply reassuring. What has been lifted from you is not leaving you without. It is making room for what has always belonged to you. This is where the shift becomes undeniable. Because up until now, you have been focused on what you were carrying. The weight, the delay, the resistance, the patterns that seemed to follow you. But what you did not fully see was what was waiting behind all of that. What you did not realize was that something had already been prepared, something that could not fully reach you while you were still carrying what was never meant to remain on you. And now, that space is opening. This is what is known as the Royal Exchange. Not a simple change, not a minor improvement, but a complete shift in identity, in position, in what you hold and how you move forward. You were carrying limitation. Now you are stepping into inheritance. You were navigating delay. Now you are aligning with access. You were holding weight. Now you are receiving authority. And this is not symbolic language. It is a transformation in how your life begins to unfold from this point forward. He watches as your understanding deepens, as you begin to grasp that this is not just about feeling lighter. It is about becoming different. Because when inheritance replaces burden, you do not just feel relief, you experience elevation. And elevation changes everything. Archangel Michael speaks again, his voice steady and unmistakable. You are not being restored to where you were. You are being elevated to where you were always meant to be. This is why this moment matters so deeply. Because if you only focus on what has been removed, you will miss the magnitude of what is being given. If you only celebrate the release of the weight, you may not fully step into the authority of the inheritance. And what is being placed in your hands now requires more than relief. It requires recognition. Recognition of who you are becoming. Recognition of what you now carry. Recognition that your position has changed. Because inheritance is not something you chase. It is something you step into. It is not earned through struggle. It is received through alignment. And right now, alignment has already begun. Think about how long you have operated from a place of proving yourself, trying to earn opportunities, trying to validate your worth, trying to convince others to see what you knew you carried. That phase is ending. Because inheritance does not require proof. It requires acceptance. You watch as something begins to shift inside of you, as the need to strive begins to loosen, as the need to over-explain begins to fade. Because when you understand that what is yours is already assigned, you no longer move with desperation, you move with certainty. And certainty changes how everything responds to you. Archangel Michael's voice rises with quiet authority. What you are stepping into will not require you to fight for recognition. It will recognize you. This is where the exchange becomes visible. Because the same areas where you experienced resistance will now begin to respond differently. The same spaces where you were once overlooked will begin to acknowledge you. The same types of opportunities that once slipped away will now line with you without force. Not because the world has changed, but because your position within it has. You are no longer approaching life from the same level. You are operating from a place of inheritance. And inheritance carries authority. It carries access. It carries alignment that cannot be forced or faked. This is why the shift may feel unfamiliar at first. Because you are not just stepping into something new. You are stepping into something that was always yours but never fully activated until now. You watch as you begin to settle into this realization, not with pressure, but with clarity. Because this is not about becoming someone else. This is about becoming who you were always meant to be once the weight was removed. And now, there is space for that to happen. Archangel Michael gives one final declaration, firm and undeniable. Do not return to carrying what has already been exchanged. You are no longer the one who held that burden. You are the one who carries the inheritance. So let this settle deeply within you. You are not the same. You are not positioned the same. You are not moving forward with the same weight. You have entered a different phase. A phase where what you hold is no longer defined by what you endured, but by what has been assigned to you. And that assignment is royal. That assignment is elevated. That assignment is yours. Type "I step into my inheritance" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 6060 is now activated around your identity. There is a moment when rejection loses its authority, when what once stood as a closed door suddenly becomes the very path that leads you forward. And you are standing on the edge of that moment now. Because what you experienced before was not final. It was temporary positioning. It was a setup that could not be understood while you were inside of it. But now, as everything begins to align, the deeper meaning behind that rejection is coming into focus. He stands with unwavering certainty, and the voice of Archangel Michael carries a tone that is both revealing and decisive. What dismissed you will soon recognize you. What overlooked you will soon seek you. This is where the narrative changes completely. Because you remember that moment. The one where you were dismissed. the one where your value was not acknowledged, the one where the decision did not go in your favor, even though everything in you knew it should have. That interaction was not just disappointing, it was defining. It made you question the process. It made you question the system. It even made you question yourself for a moment. But now, you are beginning to see it differently. Because rejection is not always a reflection of your worth. Sometimes, it is a reflection of timing. Sometimes, it is a reflection of misalignment. And sometimes, it is part of a larger sequence that must unfold before the final outcome is revealed. Archangel Michael's voice steadies your understanding. What you experienced was not a denial of your access. It was a delay of your arrival. This is the key to everything that is about to happen next. Because the bank executive who dismissed you was not operating with the full picture. They were making a decision based on what was visible at the time, without awareness of what was shifting beneath the surface. They saw a version of you that was still carrying weight, still positioned within delay, still aligned with a pattern that had not yet been broken. But that version of you no longer exists. And this is why the reversal is inevitable. He watches as this realization begins to settle into you, as the frustration of that past moment starts to transform into clarity. Because what felt like rejection was actually redirection. What felt like a closed door was actually a pause. And what felt like an ending was actually a preparation for something more aligned, more accurate, more reflective of who you are now. This is not about proving I'm wrong. This is about becoming undeniable. Archangel Michael speaks again, his voice firm and unwavering. The same system that once did not recognize you will now have no choice but to acknowledge you. And this is where the shift becomes visible in a very real way. Because the call you are about to receive is not just a conversation. It is a confirmation. It is evidence that something has changed, not just externally, but internally. It is the result of the weight being lifted, the pattern being broken, the transfer being activated, and your position being elevated. You are no longer approaching from a place of seeking approval. You are now standing in a place of alignment. And alignment changes how you are perceived. It changes how you are received. It changes how decisions are made in relation to you. He watches as your perspective continues to shift, as the need to hold on to that past rejection begins to dissolve. Because you no longer need to carry that memory as a wound. You can now hold it as a reference point, a moment that makes the reversal even more significant. Because without the rejection, the call would not carry the same weight. Without the dismissal, the recognition would not feel as powerful. Without the delay, the alignment would not be as clear. Everything that happened before was positioning this moment. And now, that moment is approaching. Archangel Michael's voice deepens, carrying both authority and assurance. Do not respond to the call from who you were. Respond from who you are now. This is critical. Because the version of you that experienced that rejection might have approached this differently. That version might have felt the need to prove something, to explain something, to justify something. But the version of you that stands here now does not need to do that. You are no longer trying to be seen. You are already seen. You are no longer trying to be validated. You are already aligned. And this is the posture you must hold as this reversal unfolds. He watches as you begin to understand that this is not just about one call, one person, or one situation. This is a pattern reversal. This is a shift in how rejection operates in your life moving forward. What once delayed you will no longer have the same authority. What once dismissed you will no longer carry the same weight, because you have moved beyond it. And now, it is catching up to you. Archangel Michael gives one final declaration, clear and undeniable. The call is not coming to remind you of your past. It is coming to confirm your present. So be ready. Not with anxiety, not with doubt, but with clarity. Because what is about to happen is not unexpected. It is aligned. It is the natural outcome of everything that has already been set in motion. And when it arrives, you will recognize it immediately. Because you are no longer waiting for it. You are already positioned for it. Type "I am ready" for the call in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 7070 is now activated around your favor. There is a difference between something being available and something being activated. And right now, you are standing in that exact space between the two. Because everything that has been revealed to you, the weight that has been lifted, the transfer that has been declared, the reversal that is already in motion, it is not waiting to begin. It has already begun. But there is a final step that connects what has been set in motion to what you will experience in reality. That step is activation. He stands still, unwavering, his presence filled with a quiet authority that does not rush yet does not delay. And the voice of Archangel Michael comes forward again, clear and intentional. What has been released to you must now be received through alignment. This is where everything becomes personal. Because up until now, you have been listening, understanding, recognizing. You have been receiving insight. You have been becoming aware. But awareness alone does not complete the process. Awareness opens the door, but alignment allows you to walk through it. And this is what must happen now. You may feel it already, that subtle shift inside of you, that sense that you cannot go back to thinking the way you did before this message. That sense that something has changed, even if nothing around you has visibly shifted yet. That is the beginning of activation. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. But it is real. Archangel Michael speaks again, his voice steady and firm. Do not wait for the external to confirm what has already been established internally. This is critical. Because many people miss their moment not because nothing was available to them, but because they waited for proof before they aligned. They waited for visible confirmation before they adjusted their mindset, their posture, their expectation. And by the time the confirmation arrived, they were not positioned to receive it fully. You are not being called to wait. You are being called to align. Right now, in this moment, he watches as your understanding deepens, as you begin to realize that this is not about doing something complicated. It is not about performing a specific action or saying a specific phrase. It is about how you hold what you now know. It is about how you see yourself in relation to what has been declared. It is about whether you remain in the identity that carried the burden, or whether you step fully into the identity that now carries the inheritance. Because you cannot hold both at the same time. You cannot carry the old weight and receive the new assignment. You cannot remain in past interpretations and fully step into present alignment. Something must shift, and that shift is internal. Archangel Michael's voice carries a deeper tone now, one that resonates with authority. Release the need to question what has already been decided. Step into what has already been given. This is the moment of activation, where you stop revisiting what was, where you stop analyzing what went wrong, where you stop holding on to the identity shaped by delay, rejection, and resistance, and you begin to move from a place of certainty, not because everything is visible yet, but because everything has already been set in motion. He watches as this realization begins to anchor itself within you, as your posture begins to change, not physically, but internally. Because activation is not about external movement first. is about internal agreement. It is about deciding, consciously and clearly, that you are no longer aligned with the version of yourself that was limited by what has now been removed. You are stepping into something different, and that requires a different way of holding yourself, a different way of thinking, a different way of responding. This is why the activation window exists. Because there are moments where alignment must happen before manifestation becomes visible. There are moments where what is already true must be accepted before it is experienced. And this is one of those moments. He speaks one more time, his voice steady and unmistakable. Do not delay your agreement with what has already been established. A moment you align is the moment the transfer begins to unfold. So stay present. Stay aware. Stay aligned with what you now understand. Because what happens next is not separate from you. It is connected to how fully you step into this moment. And this moment is not waiting. It is active. Right now. Type I activate the transfer in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 8080 is now activated around your alignment. As you step into this moment of activation, understand that every act of giving becomes part of a divine exchange that extends far beyond your own life. When you release your support through Super Thanks, with the PayPal link in the description and QR code on your screen, you are sowing into a stream that carries light into lives still waiting for this very awakening. The word declares that when you sow, you will also reap, and this is not distant. It is active, alive, and responding to your obedience right now. If your spirit feels stirred in this moment, do not delay, because this is where alignment meets action. Your seed becomes a torch that illuminates someone else's path out of confusion and into clarity. As you give, heaven acknowledges, multiplies, and releases back into your life in ways you cannot predict. Step into this moment with authority. Act now and release your seed. There comes a moment in every transformation where what is new cannot fully take root until what is old is consciously released. And this is that moment for you. Because everything that has been revealed, everything that has been activated, everything that has begun to shift within you is now leading to one critical step: realignment. Not partial adjustment, not surface-level change, but a deep, intentional separation from what you were once unconsciously agreeing with. He stands present, steady, and unmovable, and the voice of Archangel Michael carries a tone that is both instructive and firm. What held you was not only what surrounded you, it was what you silently agreed to. This is where the truth becomes deeper. Because not every limitation in your life was enforced externally. Some of it was reinforced internally. Not by fault, not by weakness, but by repetition. By exposure. By patterns that became familiar over time. You learned how to navigate certain struggles. You adapted to certain delays. You made peace with certain forms of resistance, not because you wanted them, but because they were consistent. And without realizing it, familiarity became agreement. You did not choose those limitations, but you adjusted to them. You did not desire those patterns, but you learned how to live with them. And now, that agreement must be broken. Archangel Michael's voice sharpens with clarity. You cannot step fully into inheritance while holding on to agreements formed in limitation. This is the turning point of identity. Because everything that has been activated for you requires a different internal posture. It requires you to no longer see yourself through the lens of what you experienced, but through the lens of what has now been declared. It requires you to release not only the external weight, but the internal connection you add to it. And this is where many hesitate. Because letting go of old agreements is not always comfortable. Even when those agreements were limiting, they were familiar. Even when those patterns were restrictive, they were predictable. Even when those cycles were frustrating, they were known. And stepping away from what is known, even when it is limiting, can feel uncertain at first. But this is where trust becomes essential. He watches as your awareness deepens, as you begin to recognize the subtle ways those agreements showed up in your life. The thoughts that told you not to expect too much. Internal voice that prepared you for disappointment before something even began. The quiet acceptance that certain things just don't work out for you. These were not truths. They were agreements. And now, they no longer align with who you are becoming. Archangel Michael speaks again, his voice unwavering. Release the agreements that were built in survival. You are no longer surviving. You are stepping into authority. This is where realignment takes place. Not through force, not through pressure, but through decision. A conscious, intentional decision to no longer hold on to thoughts, beliefs, and expectations that were formed in a different phase of your life. A decision to no longer interpret your future through the lens of your past. A decision to no longer carry internal agreements that contradict the inheritance now placed before you. Because inheritance requires agreement at a higher level. You cannot receive fully while internally resisting what is being given. You cannot step into new alignment while holding on to old expectations. Something must shift, and that shift begins within you. He watches as something begins to settle, not as confusion, but as clarity. Because for the first time, you are not just aware of what has been removed, you are actively choosing to not return to it. You are recognizing that what once felt normal is no longer acceptable, that what once felt familiar is no longer aligned. This is growth at its deepest level. This is transformation in its most powerful form. Archangel Michael's voice carries a final instruction, steady and unmistakable. Do not revisit what has already been released. Do not renegotiate what has already been removed. This is where your authority becomes real, because you are no longer waiting for change. You are becoming the one who holds the standard for what remains in your life and what does not. You are no longer reacting to patterns. You are deciding what patterns continue. You are no longer adjusting to limitation. You are stepping fully into alignment. And alignment does not negotiate with what no longer belongs. To let this settle deeply within you. You are not returning to old agreements. You are not carrying old expectations. You are not interpreting your future through your past. You are stepping into something new, fully, consciously, and intentionally. Because what has been given to you now requires a clear, unconflicted space to grow. And that space begins with what you choose to release. He gives one final declaration, firm and resolute. You are aligned with what is yours. Let everything else fall away. And as it does, you will not feel loss. You will feel clarity. You will feel strength. You will feel the undeniable sense that you are finally standing in the right place, with the right perspective, at the right time. Because you are. Type I release all old agreements in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 9090 is now activated around your alignment. There is a moment in every transformation where awareness becomes embodiment, where understanding is no longer something you think about, but something you begin to live from. And this is that moment for you. Because everything that has been revealed, everything that has been activated, everything that has been realigned is now leading to a single shift. How you walk from here. Not physically, but internally. He stands firm, unwavering, and the voice of Archangel Michael carries a tone that is no longer just instructive. It is commissioning. You are no longer preparing for authority. You are now required to walk in it. This is where many hesitate. Because it is one thing to receive a message, to feel inspired, to recognize a shift. But it is another thing entirely to begin operating as someone who has truly stepped into a different level of identity. Authority is not given to you so you can admire it. Authority is given to you so you can move differently because of it. And this is where the change must become visible, first within you, and then through you. You are no longer the one who second-guesses every decision. You are no longer the one who shrinks in moments where you should stand firm. You are no longer the one who waits for permission to step into spaces that already belong to your assignment. That version of you has already been replaced. And now, you must walk accordingly. Archangel Michael's voice rises with steady certainty. Do not return to the posture of someone who has not been chosen. You have been chosen, and your walk must reflect it. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. Because there is a difference between pride and authority. Pride seeks validation. Authority does not need it. Pride tries to prove something. Authority already knows. Pride reacts to opposition. Authority remains steady in the presence of it. And this is where your shift becomes undeniable. Because the way you respond to situations will begin to change. The way you carry yourself in conversations will begin to shift. The way you interpret challenges will no longer come from a place of doubt, but from a place of certainty that you are not navigating blindly. You are positioned intentionally. He watches as this realization begins to settle into your spirit, as the hesitation that once held you begins to lose its grip. Because for the first time, you are not questioning whether you belong in the next level. You are recognizing that you were always meant to be there, and that recognition changes everything. Archangel Michael speaks again, his voice grounded and unshakable. Authority is not something you wait to feel. It is something you choose to stand in. This is where the internal decision becomes critical. Because there will be moments where nothing external has fully caught up yet. There will be moments where the evidence is still forming, where the confirmation is still unfolding. And in those moments, your ability to walk in authority without immediate validation will determine how quickly everything aligns around you. You are not waiting to become ready. You are stepping forward because you are already ready. This is the shift. This is the difference. And this is where everything begins to accelerate. He watches as your internal posture continues to change, as your mindset begins to stabilize at a higher level. Because you are no longer reacting to life as it happens. You are moving with the understanding that what is happening is connected to what has already been declared over you. You are not uncertain. You are aligned. And alignment produces confidence that does not need to be forced. Archangel Michael's voice carries a deeper tone now, one that reinforces your position. The way you walk now will determine how everything responds to you. This is why this section matters. Because your authority is not just about you. It influences how others see you, how opportunities approach you, how decisions are made around you. It is not something separate from your external world. It shapes it. When you walk in hesitation, things around you hesitate. When you walk in certainty, things around you begin to align. When you walk as though you are still carrying the past, you invite the past to continue influencing your present. But when you walk in authority, you signal that the shift is complete, and everything begins to respond accordingly. He watches as this understanding becomes clearer, as you begin to realize that this is not about pretending. It is not about forcing confidence. It is about aligning with what has already been established. You are not creating something new. You are stepping into something that has already been set in motion, and your walk must reflect that. Archangel Michael gives one final declaration, firm and unwavering. Do not shrink back into what you have already outgrown. Walk forward as who you have now become. To let this settle into you fully. You are not waiting for authority. You are carrying it. You are not hoping for alignment. You are in it. You are not becoming chosen. You already are. And from this moment forward, everything about how you move must reflect that truth. Because the shift is not coming. It has already happened. Now, it is time for you to walk like it. Type "I walk in authority" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1010 is now activated around your presence. There are moments that come quietly, and then there are moments that arrive with a weight so undeniable that they demand your full attention. This is not a casual moment. This is not something that can be revisited later with the same intensity, the same alignment, the same spiritual positioning. This is a marked moment, a decisive moment, a moment that stands between what was and what is now ready to fully unfold. He stands unwavering, his presence filled with authority that does not shake, and the voice of Archangel Michael now carries a tone that is both urgent and resolute. What is before you now is not meant to be delayed, diluted, or dismissed. This is the moment of transfer, and this is where everything becomes clear. Because up until now, you have been guided step by step: awareness, revelation, activation, alignment, authority. Each part building upon the last. Each layer preparing you for what is now directly in front of you. But this is where many lose their momentum. Not because they lack understanding, but because they underestimate the importance of the moment they are in. They assume there will be another opportunity just like this. They assume they can return to this level of clarity later. They assume they can pause, delay, or revisit when it feels more convenient. But this moment does not operate on convenience. It operates on timing. Archangel Michael's voice cuts through any lingering hesitation. Do not treat this moment as repeatable. It is specific. It is intentional. It is now. This is the final warning. Not agreeing fear, but agreeing focus. Because the transfer that has been declared, the shift that has been activated, the alignment that has been established, it is all converging into this point of decision. A decision that is not about external action, but internal commitment. A decision about whether you fully step into what has been given, or whether you hold back and remain partially connected to what has already been removed. You cannot stand in both places. You cannot carry the past and fully receive the future. You cannot hesitate in a moment that requires certainty. Something must be chosen, and that choice is yours. He watches as the weight of this realization settles into you, not as pressure but as clarity. Because for the first time, you are seeing this moment for what it truly is. Not just another message, not just another insight, but a point of alignment that determines how everything that follows begins to unfold. Archangel Michael speaks again, his voice steady but firm. What hath been released will not force itself upon you. It must be received. This is where responsibility meets opportunity. Because the transfer is not withheld, but it is not imposed. It is available, but it must be accepted. It is aligned, but it must be embraced. And this is where hesitation becomes costly. Not because something will be taken away, but because something will remain unreceived. Something will remain inactive. Something will remain just outside of your experience, not because it was not given, but because it was not fully stepped into. He watches as your awareness sharpens, as your understanding deepens into something more grounded, more certain. Because you are no longer passively listening, you are actively recognizing that this moment carries weight that cannot be ignored. This is the difference between knowing and stepping, between hearing and becoming. between understanding and aligning. And now, alignment is required. Archangel Michael's voice carries one final, unmistakable declaration. Do not return to distraction. Do not return to doubt. Do not return to delay. What is before you now must be met with clarity. This is where your focus must remain, because the world around you will not pause. Distractions will still exist. Old patterns may attempt to resurface. Old thoughts may try to revisit. But you are no longer the one who entertains them. You are the one who sees clearly. And clarity demands consistency. He watches as something settles within you. A firmness, a stillness, a sense that you cannot go back to where you were before this moment. Because you have seen too much. You have understood too much. You have stepped too far forward internally to return to old ways of thinking. This is what makes the moment irreversible. Not because time cannot move forward, but because you cannot unknow what you now know. And that changes everything. Archangel Michael gives one final declaration, steady and absolute. The transfer is here. Do not stand outside of what has already been opened. So stand in it. Fully. Without hesitation. Without delay. Without looking back. Because what is before you now is not waiting for you to be perfect. It is waiting for you to be present. And you are here. Right now. In this moment. Exactly where you need to be. Type "I do not miss this moment" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1111 is now activated around your decision. There is a moment when everything that has been spoken, everything that has been revealed, everything that has been activated comes together into one final truth. It is no longer coming. It is here. This is that moment. Not approaching. Not forming you. Not building quietly beneath the surface anymore. He has arrived. And what you do with this arrival determines how fully it manifests in your life. He stands with a presence that is no longer preparing you, but affirming you. And the voice of Archangel Michael now carries the weight of completion, of finality, of divine confirmation. What has been declared over you is no longer in motion. It is now established. This is the prophetic seal, not a promise waiting to be fulfilled, but a reality that has already taken form. Everything that once defined your previous season, the delay, the resistance, the uncertainty, the patterns that tried to repeat themselves, no longer hold authority in this space. They have been removed. They have been replaced. They have been overridden by something higher, something intentional, something that aligns with who you are now. And who you are now is not who you were. You are not the one who was waiting. You are the one who has stepped into. You are not the one who was questioning. You are the one who now knows. You are not the one who was carrying. You are the one who now holds. This is the shift. This is the new season. And it does not begin tomorrow. It begins now. He watches as this truth settles into you, not as something you are trying to grasp, but as something you are beginning to embody. Because a new season is not marked by external signs alone. It is marked by internal certainty, a knowing that does not need confirmation, a clarity that does not need explanation, a presence that does not need validation. This is where you are standing. And from this place, everything begins to respond differently. The opportunities that come will not feel forced. The conversations that happen will not feel uncertain. The doors that open will not feel unstable, because they are aligned with the version of you that now exists. Archangel Michael speaks again, his voice steady and final. Do not look for signs to confirm what has already been sealed. Walk as though it is done, because it is. This is where your walk and your awareness become one. Because you are no longer transitioning, you have arrived. You are no longer preparing, you are positioned. You are no longer hoping, you are holding. And everything that follows this moment will begin to reflect that truth. He watches as your posture continues to stabilize in this new understanding, as the last remnants of hesitation dissolve. Because there is nothing left to question. There is nothing left to revisit. There is nothing left to hold on to from the past. What has been removed is gone. What has been given is present. And what has been established is unshakable. This is your new foundation. And from this foundation, everything builds differently. Archangel Michael gives one final declaration, clear, unwavering, and absolute. You are not stepping into a possibility. You are standing in a reality. Remain in it. So remain. Do not shrink back. Do not second guess. Do not dilute what hath been placed within you. Because this moment has sealed something that cannot be undone. You have crossed into a different phase. A phase where your identity, your alignment, your authority, and your inheritance are no longer separate ideas, but one unified reality. And from this moment forward, everything you experience will begin to reflect that. Not all at once, but undeniably, consistently, and without reversal. Because what had been sealed cannot be undone, and what has been established cannot be taken back. This is your beginning, of something uncertain, but of something already secured. So stand in it, fully, without hesitation, because this is where you belong. Type IT is done in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1212 is now activated around your new season. As this prophetic seal settles over your life, understand this truth. Every seed you release becomes a key that unlocks another soul's awakening. When you give through Super Thanks with the PayPal link in the description and QR code on your screen, you are not supporting a message. You are releasing rivers of light into lives still waiting for their breakthrough. The word speaks. He who sows generously will also reap generously, and this is not distant. It is active over you right now. If you feel this stirring in your spirit, this is your moment to respond with obedience, not delay. I feel led to say this clearly. Your act of giving in this moment is a prophetic step that aligns you deeper with what has just been sealed over your life. As you release your seed, heaven releases increase, clarity, and favor back into your hands. Step forward now. Activate this exchange. Give, and let the harvest begin.